cost of heating during winter. Did anyone get a bill this winter that shocked them? I got two tips actually, two really good tips with heating and the utilities. You can actually pay by the fortnight. You can average out how much your bills are going to be, and you can pay by the fortnight so that you don't get a $600 bill every quarter, it's a godsend for our family. And something that I'm sure our second speaker will like to hear, good insulation. And do you know what you can do that's really good and cheap? Bubble wrap. Turns out, put bubble wrap on your windows. It's an excellent and very cheap way. It doesn't look pretty, and when you take it off in summer, there's some mold to clean up, but if you're looking for cheap, effective insulation, try bubble wrap. And on that note, I will welcome the next speaker on your budget priorities, Ms. Meredith Hunter. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. Bubble wrap. The Greens have committed to returning the budget to surplus in 2015-16, and all our election announcements are consistent with this aim and within the current budget parameters to achieve that. All our initiatives we submitted to Treasury for costing as part of the new process that was passed on the last sitting day of the Assembly, and already we have submitted 15 initiatives, and they're up on the website so everyone can see exactly what the cost of our initiatives will be. We will do that with all of our announcements. I'm not sure that any of the other parties have put in. I could be wrong. Certainly I haven't been made aware that other parties have submitted their announcements to this process yet. The Greens' policy is that the budget should be balanced over the economic cycle. We do not agree with the fixation on surpluses and instead think that it's the government's job to manage the economy and ensure that everyone in the community is doing as well as possible. And the Greens agreed that it was reasonable to go into deficit this year to protect our economy for the impacts of the Commonwealth fiscal consolidation. So we agreed that it was more important to protect local jobs, not to have a government to go out and slash and burn as we are seeing in Queensland and New South Wales and Victoria, but that the economy, we sort of take a slower approach to that moving back towards surplus. We were disappointed with some of the spending in this year's budget, and we believe that we could have invested the money better to deliver long-term outcomes and to make our community more sustainable. But our Greens election initiatives will do just that. They're investments in our community that will make Canberra a better place to live. The Greens very much are about long-term thinking and being able to look over the next, outside of the electoral cycle. Our initiatives are our budget priorities. So far we've released, as I said, those policies to build light rail, to clean up our lakes. There's more money into schools, there's more money into health, particularly in the preventative health end. Now I'll now turn to the issue of tax reform and rates, because there is this big scare campaign that's going on out there. This, again, very simplistic three-word slogan. And it's no surprise that this tactic is being used. It's been copied from the Tony Abbott playbook around the carbon tax and has nothing to do with what's really happening. What the Liberals are telling you about rates simply isn't true. And they know full well that it isn't true. They know that they have based their campaign on something that is simply untrue. The tax reforms are designed to make our taxation system fairer and more efficient. And essentially this means moving away from the transaction taxes like stamp duty and the insurance levy to a stable base that we can make, that will be progressive and will be fairer. The Greens were the first party to support the Henry tax reforms federally and locally, and we did participate in that local ACT tax review. And we put our view to the panel that we should be moving away from those inefficient transaction taxes and implementing what was recommended in the Henry review. And this is exactly what's been done. Over time, we'll remove the barrier that exists for people when they're buying a home. whether that's their first home or the home they want to downsize to because their life circumstances have changed. They may have retired, they may want a smaller dwelling. And stamp duty on that home is being phased, on homes is being phased out altogether. This will take away a massive barrier for many people entering home ownership. The reforms are being implemented over 20 years, and this is where the Liberals campaign really falls down, because the Liberals are out there trying to make everybody think that these reforms are being phased in or being brought in over the next 4 years. They're not. It is a 20-year process, and it is important that we do get that out to people, that this scare campaign is based on something that just does not exist. It is a 20-year reform. As I said, the impact of the changes will be different depending on the value of different properties. 24% of Canberrans this year, because of these changes, have had a cut in their rates. It's progressive, so people who are sitting on more expensive properties will be paying more than those who are sitting in areas where the land is less expensive. Across Canberra, the average increase is around $130 a year. That comes to, I believe, something like $2.35 or so a week. Now, for those people who may live in areas where they may be older people who've lived in their home for 60 years and they are asset rich but cash poor, the system has built into it concessions. There are concessions available and there are deferral options available, recognising that there will be people in that position. So basically what the Liberals are doing with their misleading statement is using a table from a report recommendation that was not adopted. So we do need to get on top of this clear negative scare campaign, which is based on nothing, and make sure that people do understand that rates will not triple. And certainly this putting out this idea that it's going to happen over the next 4 years is, I believe, an outrage to be trying to scare people and to be running a campaign on what is basically a lie. Thank you.
And with only 5 minutes allocated to each speaker on the priorities for the budget for their party, I'm sure that Andrew Barr will appreciate not having to repeat everything that you just said. And as I said at the beginning, the budget that was handed down was revolutionary. There's a lot of confusion and no doubt a lot of questions for you. So after our third speaker, Mr. Andrew Barr, we'll be taking 5 minutes of questions for you. Please make me welcome the Deputy Chief Minister and Mr. Andrew Barr.
I won't repeat all that Meredith said, but I'll just make one very simple point, that you'll hear this tripling of rates claimed quite a bit. It's not true. The only thing that's tripling is the size of the nose of the person who tells you that their rates are tripling. That's the only thing that's tripling. What we're seeking to do is make a fairer and more progressive tax system, but one that is robust for the future, and we are seeking to make changes over a 20-year period. So, as Meredith said, the table that's being used, the alleged horror table, was an option the government never took up. We rejected it, and we adopted a different approach. In terms of the budget more broadly, we made a very deliberate decision in 2012-13 to run a deficit to support jobs and to support infrastructure investment in the ACT. The reason we did that is that the Commonwealth Government is such a large part of our economy. They're about 50% of all that occurs in the ACT economy. And the ACT economy is counter-cyclical to the national economy. When the Commonwealth is spending big, it's generally because the Australian economy is not performing well, and that has a very positive impact in the ACT when the Commonwealth spends money. The converse of that is that when the Australian economy is performing better than average, the Commonwealth starts to contract its spending, and we're in that cycle now. But that contraction of Commonwealth spending impacts upon the ACT economy more than any other part of the country. So we recognise that the Commonwealth wasn't going to be adding to employment in this 12 months, and it was going to be reducing its investment in the Territory. It's been investing heavily in some very significant projects that have brought hundreds of millions of dollars worth of economic activity to our city and thousands of jobs. But that was starting to wind down. That investment you would have seen in the Territory's schools through the Building the Education Revolution program and in new infrastructure across the city. The large ASIO building is a very good example of a $500 million investment in this city. That project is coming to an end. So we took the conscious decision to invest more health infrastructure, $1 billion rebuild of the Territory's health system, continued investment in education, but also investment in other crucial areas of infrastructure, in urban improvement, in everything from sports ground upgrades to local shopping centre upgrades to improving our transport infrastructure. And we'll continue that focus, but we'll do so in a measured way, returning the Territory's budget to surplus. The pre-election budget update that was released only a couple of days ago showed in fact that we've improved our position to return to surplus in 15-16, a surplus of around $50 million in that year. But the point I'd make overall is that at this level of government, whether we have a surplus plus or minus $50 million or thereabouts is really neither here nor there. It doesn't impact on the national economy. It doesn't impact dramatically on the Territory's balance sheet overall. What's important is that we maintain our level of investment in community services and in infrastructure that will support this community, because that's what this level of government is about. We continue to have a very strong balance sheet, second only, I think, to Western Australia. We have very low debt and we have fantastic capacity to continue to invest in this city. And that's, I think, the optimistic view to take. And that's the view that the Labor Party will take, that this city has brilliant possibilities in its future. We should lead the nation in health and education. We should continue our strong investments in our universities, and we should continue to invest in our knowledge economy, because that's where the jobs of the future will be, and that's where the government should take an active leadership role in working with the private sector by getting our tax policy settings right to encourage new investment, to encourage new jobs, and to continue to support this community through an exciting period. It's not that often a city turns 100. It's not that often that you get to live through that period and get the opportunity to shape what your city will be like in its second century. We're very much looking forward to those challenges. And if we are supported on the 20th of October, what you will see is a continuation of the focus on health, education, jobs, and a very, very, very strong focus on community inclusion. I'd like to finish on that point. We are the most successful multicultural community in Australia. We are the most inclusive community in Australia. And we do so because we have the community services in place and the support mechanisms in place to ensure that through health, through education and through employment, through community services, that everyone has the opportunity to be their very best in this city. It's a great place to live. I hope you all enjoy being Canberrans, and we certainly very much look forward to your support on the 20th of October. Thank you.